Yeah.
Yes. Anything else? Anyone? Any more questions here? And finally, we come down to something called SaaS, software as a service, where you are simply going and telling a real estate broker that, you know what, I just want to move into a house. I don't want to buy anything. I simply want to, let's say, come with a simple bag. I just want to go inside that particular house, start living there. Same thing. You're going to a company. Let's say I am Microsoft. You're coming to Microsoft. You're telling, I'm a hotel industry boss. I don't want to take all this headache of, let's say, maintaining my application. I don't even know what my application really is. I will tell you what I need. I need an application. This is the color of the application. This is the functionality of the application. You design, give everything to me. You just give me a link. I just want to use the link out there. And this service is called as a software as a service. For example, web.outlook.com. You're not installing anything in your laptop. You're just signing up for that particular website. And if you go to Outlook Web, if you just go there and say Outlook Web out here, I'm not installing anything. I'm just going ahead into this particular website, logging inside this particular website using my ID, and that's it. I'm able to read all my emails. This is a classic example of a software as a service. I don't want to install, I don't want to do all these things out. Just I want to go into this link and start using it. Software as a service model. Portal.azure.com, the one that we're using till now, is itself a software as a service. I did not install anything, right? Just took my browser, said portal.azure.com, had a subscription with it. I started using it. I did not install anything in my laptop to go ahead and start using it. Of course, yes, you can say that we have installed Microsoft Storage Explorer. That's because we wanted to go ahead and do a demo. You don't really have to have a Microsoft Storage Explorer to use, let's say, this particular portal. You can simply start using all these things out here. This is a classic example of software as a service wherein you're not responsible for anything. You just go ahead and start, let's say, using these particular services. Yes. Any questions still here? Anyone? Any questions still here that I can take? No. So they will give you the platform. They will give you the platform in the form of, let's say, app services or web apps or something like that. They'll give you a platform. The deployment of your code is something that you have to take care of. The deployment meaning you want to deploy the code, you want to increment the version of your code, meaning your code is running on, let's say, version 10. You want to take it to version 11, version 12. You also want to make sure to, let's say, come back to a different version. All these things is something that you take care of. And that's where DevOps actually comes into picture. If it's a single server, it's okay. I can just go and deploy it out the way I want to. There are hundreds of servers. That's how, let's say, companies actually work. There'll be hundreds of services on which you want to push your code into. That's where we as a DevOps team come into picture. Yes, any more questions here? Anyone? Any questions still here that I can take? Okay, so let's get started with PaaS then. Let's start understanding what is a PaaS service and how easy it is to go ahead and create a PaaS service out here. And we'll compare it with what we know, IaaS service like a virtual machine. Again, a classic example for IaaS are virtual machines, load balancers, virtual networks, all these things out. And I'll just put this as a virtual machine service. Let's go there and say this is a virtual machine out here. So, and a very classic example for a PaaS service is something known as an Azure App Service, or you can also call this as an Azure Web App. Anything is okay. Web app or app service, anything is okay out here. App service or web app out here. This is something that you can call. Let's go back into our Azure portal. I'll just duplicate this tab and let's start creating IaaS in this particular tab and PaaS in this particular tab. Understand what is the differences that you get out here. And again, when you want to create an IaaS, I'll go to a virtual machine. I'll say create this out. And once I create this out, once it'll ask me for all the details, I'll say this is IaaS RG, something like this. I'll say the name of the VM is something like demo VM. I'll say the location of this particular VM is something like ECS2. Just scroll down. There is something called availability options. You can select an availability set or a zone. I'll just scroll down. It'll also tell you what is your operating system that you want. I'll say this is Windows 2019 operating server system out here. And then the underlying layer, infrastructure layer, it's asking me what kind of a VM size that you want. How big or how small the machine is going to be. I'll say, okay, fine, just select any random size. User ID, password. Confirm the password here. Come down. Tell what are the ports that you want. HTTP, HTTPS, RDP and all that stuff. Just go back or next to the disks that you want an OS disk or a data disk, what it is. Networking, you will definitely need a virtual network. You also need to tell whether you need a public IP or not. And then the management of this one, whether you want to disable the boot diagnostics or whether you want to configure something called auto shutdown. Do you want to shut this machine down after 7 p.m. and all that stuff? Then the advanced, nothing much to, let's say, look at this one. Tags, review and create this out. This is the creation, or this is how you are going ahead and creating an IaaS service in a PaaS service. Let's come back. Let's search for app services. There's something called what? App services out here. Let's go there. I'll say create. I'll create a resource group called ASRG and I'll say okay. And the very first thing that it was asking me in IaaS is the name, the location. Same thing, name, location. Let's start by typing something called as a name. I'll say this is demo app service ABC 000. Name should be unique, but check this out. When I'm typing in a name, it's just the name of the machine that I'm creating. But when I'm typing this out, it's not just the name, it is a fully qualified domain name. This demo app service ABC 000 dot Azure websites dot net, meaning it is giving you a complete DNS name out here. When you look at a virtual machine, we created the virtual machine. After that, we went into the DNS name, configured a DNS name, and I said, instead of using the IP, you can use the DNS name out here. But in this case, DNS is being taken care by Microsoft because this is a PaaS service, and in a PaaS service, the cloud provider takes care of all these things out. You do not have to bang your head on, let's say, the DNS out here. You do not have to, let's say, go ahead, create a DNS name, attach it to this one public IP, and then do all these things out. No, don't have to do that. Let's come back. Just scroll down. Then it is telling me how do you want to publish your code. It's telling there is something called code, Docker container, and static web application. I'll go with the simplest option right now. We'll talk about what Docker container is, let's say, at the time when we come down to Dockers and Kubernetes and all these things. I'll go with the very simplest option called code. I have code. I want to have, publish my code out there. And it's telling me what kind of a code do you have. Is it .NET applications? If it's .NET application, is it .NET 7.6 core what it is? Is it Java? Is it Python? Is it Ruby? Is it Node? A lot of things out here. I'll simply start with something like .NET Core. I'm saying I have a .NET Core code. I'll publish it. I'll publish it when the time comes in. And now it's telling me what is the underlying operating system. Is it Windows or is it Linux? Just go back into the virtual machine service. And the same thing is addressed under something called as what? Image. It's not telling operating system. It's telling an image. There is a difference between operating system and an image. Here, see all the images that you have. You have Windows, and if you go to Windows Server, if I just say select, you have a host of options out here. Starting from Windows 2012 to Windows 2022 is something that they are offering. Any image you can select, but maintenance is on you. I'm not taking the headache of maintaining it out. I'll just give you the image. On top of the image, whatever you do, it is your headache. You want to install IIS, you want to install Chrome, you maintain it. Or do you want to have Linux? If you want Linux, again, there are multiple flavors of Linux like Ubuntu, Fedora, Cent, a lot of things out here. All these things are given to you by Microsoft, telling CentOS. It's telling you what version of Cent do you want, or Red Hat, what version of Red Hat do you want, or Linux, what version of, let's say, Ubuntu, let's say, that you want out here, and a lot of things out here. You have SQL, you have all these things out. You have a couple of images out here, but you come to the past service. Do you see an option to select an image? No. All it is telling you is that do you want a Windows or do you want a Linux? What Windows I give is up to me as a cloud provider, because in this model, you are not taking care of the operating system. I, as a cloud provider, I am managing the operating system out here. So, whatever operating system is available with me at that given point in time, I'll go ahead install that particular operating system for you. I cannot give you so many options out here, because the reason behind this is because I don't want to take the headache in the first place, right? I don't want to go ahead and take the headache of maintaining all these things out. So Microsoft is now telling me that, you know what, operating system is something that I will take care of. And now it's telling me which region you want this in. Region is the same thing again, guys. Now you have to tell the region out here. I'll tell something like, Central US, East US, to whatever it is. I'll say East US to work here. Good enough until now. Here, if you look at the model, I am telling that Microsoft is giving RAM hard drive. This is same. On top of which, Microsoft is also giving you the OS and the IIS and all that stuff. Application is something that you're taking headache of. Microsoft is not asking you where's your code. No, it's telling you whether you want to go for Docker or whether you want to go for normal code publishing. If normal code publishing, then what kind of a code you need. Code deployment can be dealt later, not a problem. But though Microsoft is giving you the RAM and hardware, you need to tell what capacity you need. You need to tell that I want this big of a server or this small of a server, just like we do with virtual machines. If you go back to the virtual machine out here, it's just asking you how big or how much, let's say, of RAM, how much of, let's say, space you want on a rental basis. Same thing is being asked to you in a web app or in a PaaS service in the form of something called as an app service plan. App service plan decides how big or how small the underlying hardware is. Again, if you look at this, you can create a new app service. I'll say this is plan 01. And very importantly, guys, an app service and an app service plan, meaning app service is nothing but the application, plan is nothing but the underlying infrastructure. Both have to be in the same region. You cannot have your app service in a region, you cannot have an app service plan in a region. So if you come down here, when I say PaaS, when I say app service, you need to have something called as an app service plan. This is the diagram representation of something called as an app service plan out here. Both the app service and the app services or app service plan should be in the same region. And the significance of plan here, meaning the idea behind plan here, is that it will give you the underlying infrastructure. All the underlying infrastructure is given to you by something called as a plan out here. And if you look at this, you have options here to change the size. Again, when you are working with a free trial subscription, you will not have the option to change the size. The only size you will get is something called as a free size out there. But in my case, I can go ahead and change the size out here. And I have three different options to choose from. One is called dev test, production, isolation out here. When you go into dev test, it starts all the way from something called F1. Just like in virtual machines, you have something like D2 and all that stuff. In app services, you have something, or in app services, you have something called as what? F1 free plan. Meaning, if you want to create here, it's free in nature, but you will only get 1 GB of memory, meaning 1 GB of RAM, 60 minutes per day of compute. Meaning, if you are creating your website on this particular app service free plan, your website can be running for continuously 60 minutes. After that, it won't run. Just for testing. Let's say I want more. I can go for something called D1, 1 GB RAM, but 240 minutes of compute, meaning 4 hours. Your website can be running for 4 hours, but the monthly cost that you pay would be around 683 rupees per a month. Also, if you just scroll down, there is something called included hardware, memory, and you see storage, meaning a backend running storage account, which you do not have access, but you can go ahead and utilize about 1 GB space in that particular storage. And there is something known as, or let's say there are multiple plans out here like B1, which is now giving you something called as a 100 total ACU, Azure Compute Units. Meaning, very simple guys, it's like the processor. You have i3, i5, i7 processors and etc. Right? For Azure, ACU is a processor, compute unit. Meaning, greater your ACU, faster will be your website. That's the thumb rule. It's telling 1.75 GB of memory, A series compute. You'll get around the cost that is you pay around here is about what? 2300 rupees for a month. And then you have something called as a production plans. For most of the live websites, we go for production based plans out here. Again, 100 total ACUs, but here, let's say the compute units or the processor that you get is a good quality processor. And here you have somewhere around 3155 rupees out here. I'll initially start with F1. I'll say apply and I'll say next deployment. I don't care about deployment right now. Neither I care about networking. I'll just switch off everything right now. Monitoring is also something that I'll switch off. We'll talk about all these things in the coming classes. And once all these things are done, I'll say review and create. Now let's see, compare this with virtual machines. In virtual machines, I said what kind of a network I want. I said what kind of a disk I want. I said what kind of an image I want. I said what is my management. How do I manage this out? Everything. And then I went ahead and review and created this out. I said what is my public IP and all these things. Here I'm not doing anything as such. I'm just going ahead telling what is the name of the website, what is the plan, and I'll hit the button create. Here also I'll go ahead and hit the button create out here. Now, as and when I hit the create button, here it will go ahead create the resource group, the networks, the disks, the NIC card, the NSGs, and all these things out. Here it will just simply create an app service and an app service plan. Background networking and everything is taken care by Microsoft. I am not taking care of all these things. Storage is taken care by Microsoft. NIC card is taken care by Microsoft. NSG rules are taken care by Microsoft. I am not, let's say, even telling what my rule is. I never told what is my, let's say, network, how big or how small my network is. I didn't comment on all these things out. All I said is that I need this, let's say, app service with this particular plan, and that's it. It's created, and your virtual machine is still taking time because it will take time. Naturally, it will take time out here. Again, one more comparison out here is that after you create a virtual machine, if you want to create a website out of that particular virtual machine, what do you have to do? What do you have to, let's say, do here? If you want to convert this virtual machine into a web server, you have to go into the virtual machine, install IIS, then take your code, put that, you get a default HTML page. In an app service, I don't have to do all that. Just go to the resource, you'll get the app service, and as and when you get this out, you get an option to browse this app service, and you also get a URL, which is HTTPS, Hypertext Transfer Protocol Secure. In the security, even the secure socket layer SSL, is taken care by Microsoft. And if you click this out, did I install IIS? No, I did not do that. Did I install any software? No. Did I log into the let's say web application? No, nothing. I did nothing because all these things are maintained by Microsoft. Meaning meaning web application is nothing but a virtual machine that is running in the background with IIS and all these things installed, and Microsoft is just giving you a URL that you can start dealing with. And in my case, again, this is a virtual machine again that I created. And if I want to, let's say, go ahead use this particular virtual machine as a web application server, I'll firstly need to do an RDP, install that particular software, wait for that particular software to install, take my own HTML page, put it inside that particular www root folder, and then you will see a website. But in the case of app service, you have the application up and running in a few seconds. You can take your own code. We'll talk about how to take your own code, deploy it here, and all that stuff. You can take your own code, put your own code. That's it. Don't have to worry about the IIS. Don't have to worry about the operating system. Don't have to take the headache of all these things out here. Microsoft is taking care of this. This is the biggest difference between IaaS and a PaaS model. Yes, PaaS is costlier, but you don't have to manage all these things out. That's where, let's say, the cost difference, and that's where, let's say, the model difference really comes into picture. Yes, any questions still here? Anyone, any questions still here that I can take? Again, today I just want to do an introduction of PaaS. I didn't want to, let's say, go ahead into PaaS and say what PaaS is and all that stuff. I wanted to do an introduction of PaaS while comparing it to what we know, an IaaS service. And from tomorrow, we'll do what is PaaS services. How do you deal with PaaS service? What do you get with PaaS service and all these things. Yes, any more questions here? Anyone, any questions still here? Anyone, any questions that I can take before we can close this session? Web app means it's not available in Play Store. No, sir, this is something which is very different. It's something that is not available. No, it's just something. No, I am not too sure on what exactly that you're asking, but no, this is something which is not available in Play Store. No, this is a service that is running in the cloud. So applications are available in Play Store. For example, let's say you're installing an application called, let's say, some camera application, etc. That application is hosted on a web app. It's a platform that hosts your services out here, like irctc.com and all that stuff.
Hi, Kiran.
Just a second. Please hold for a second. Can we update the plan after? Yes. You can change your plan from F1 to B1, B1 to S1, come back to F1. You can do all these things. Scale up and scale down. You can also do that. Yes, someone had a question online.
Uh, we can create this IAS and PAS by using ARM template.
Yes,
Is there
definitely.
any?
We already created IAS using ARM template, which is virtual machine. Using an ARM template, we did that. Pass, yes. You can go with the PowerShell, you can go with ARM, you can go with any model out there. Again, everything is same. It's just like a web application, or it's just like a virtual machine that has IIS already installed. So when you go and create this particular, let's say, PaaS service, Microsoft in the background is giving you a virtual machine, installing all the softwares that are required for the virtual machine, putting a sample HTML page, and giving you the URL directly, so that you don't have to go log into that machine and do all that stuff. No, don't have to do all these things out here. Yes, any more questions, guys?
Yeah, hi Kiran.
Good, please.
Yeah, Kiran. So this application build up, who will take care of it? Means that admin role or DevOps,
Sorry, can you come again,
DevOps role.
please? No,
See,
can you please come
application we
again?
are building now.
Correct.
The application we are building now will comes to which role, means administration part or DevOps part.
It depends upon
The,
how big or how small the application really is. If the application is really small, you don't really need
okay.
a lot of team members to work on this particular application. Administrators can, let's say, more or less do the same thing. But if the application is really big, then that's where
Mhm.
you need DevOps engineers to maintain that particular application. Version control and all that stuff comes into picture.
Okay. Hmm. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is anything else, guys?
Yeah, hi Kiran.
Good, please.
Like I just created a new account.
Okay.
Then when I go to Active Directory, then it is showing like you don't have an access.
Did you create a subscription?
No, like before creating subscription, we would
Mhm.
not be able to see the Active Directory.
Yeah, it is happening like that these days. I'm not too
Okay.
sure why, but if you do not have a subscription, they're not letting you into the Active Directory out here. So once you have a
Okay.
subscription, Azure is going ahead and giving you the Active Directory.
Okay. Like if I go to subscription, then it is saying like your current access do not include permissions to view any subscription and all.
Correct. You have to, let's say, go ahead add a subscription. You have to say
Okay.
add a subscription because the current access you do not really have a subscription out there. That's the reason it's telling you. You'll have to add a
Yeah.
subscription, create one,
Okay. Then
and
if I
once. Hmm?
okay. Okay, first of all, then I need to create subscription. If I then add the subscription to my account, then I can view Active Directories, right?
Correct.
Yeah, before when I created last time, it haven't shown like this, so that is why I'm
Correct.
just asking.
Correct. Because it's happening since the last 15 days or something like that. Like, that's what I kind of heard. Once you have the subscription in place, then you can go ahead and visit your directory.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. I'll try that.
Sure. Okay, guys. So I'm little top of the hour, so I'll